Hello, everybody. Welcome to perFORM Music Incubator Podcast. perFORM Music Incubator is an artist development and music enterprise incubator, and we are here to develop the whole ecosystem of the music industry. I mean, artists, songwriters, producers, event producers, managers, publicists, the whole 9 yards. Today's episode, we talk about branding and marketing and publicity. And what does this really mean for an artist? What does it mean to be a brand? What is the difference between marketing and publicity? How do you grow as a brand? Can you be a brand when you're in a niche audience? Does a brand become? Is a brand engineered? How can you stay true to your artistry even as you grow? For this and so much more, join us. It's going to be a really good one. My name is Muthoni Drummer Queen. I am a singer, rapper, drummer. I'm also a creative entrepreneur. And I really enjoy creativity, the whole spectrum of it.
Hi, my name is Muthoni Maingi, and I like to describe myself as somebody who's passionate about the power of the mobile phone and the internet to change people's lives. And that's a space I've been working in for about 12 years.
And I'm Nyambura Ngumba. I'm passionate about marketing and brands and how it helps entrepreneurs and small businesses, especially women-led businesses. And so I've been in the marketing and PR space for about 12 years.
Amazing. So now, ladies, yes, we're going to begin because we need it. Me, I need it, and our industry needs it. You see, I'm a human being, but there's this other thing called brand. Now, what does that mean, given that I am a human and now there's also this thing called brand? What does it actually mean?
Okay, so I have worked in brand teams for quite a while, so I'm not a brand manager per se. But in terms of my understanding of brand, or rather how I have seen them evolving, especially with the diverse channels that we currently have, is at the core of it is just about telling a story. Telling a story that's distinct, that's relatable to a select audience, and that's also very important to remember. It's not for everybody. And also telling a story that somebody can grasp quite simply in 3 or 4 sentences on who you are, what your purpose is, and what value you offer them as well. Yeah.
I think the thing about brand is differentiation. What makes you different from the next person who's either doing the same thing or who is doing something entirely different. I think as far as an artist, it's what compels you to do the thing that you're doing. Even as an individual, there's a reason why I bake as opposed to cook. So what is the thing that is compelling me to do this thing? So that's really what brand boils down to. But it is also, like Noni said, to a specific audience.
That's really interesting because, okay, I mean, I know that you're not for everybody, but do I really know that as an artist, because we're always being pushed, to be as ubiquitous. More is more, right? Our industry really plays this game of more is more. I need as many streams as possible. So I need to be, one size fits all. And even when we're looking for collaborations, it's like you need to be always growing. Ebu just help me think about that point. Because differentiation means you can't be for everybody.
Yes, so you can't be for everybody. I think it's really about sitting down and thinking through, okay, what is the right audience for me? Thinking about how much money and impact can I get from that specific audience? So don't be too narrow as well. Or if you're going to be narrow, then you become, a very niche, maybe luxury sort of like brand and appeal, which sometimes we see with some jazz artists, specific genres of, I would say maybe opera. Opera music is one of those, right? It's very distinct. It's, known for luxury. You still make money, but it's a very niche audience. And you can also decide to be a more sort of like mass, what you call popular culture brand. But even within popular culture, you still have to have distinction because it's your stands that drive the conversation, that drive actually majority of the content that you would create. So it's really sitting down and deciding, okay, what is the audience for me?
Do they find me or do I find them?
I think it's a little bit of both. If you're being authentic and you're being your brand, the people who are attracted to the thing that you are will find you. The thing that resonates with them when they listen to whether it's your lyrics or your vibe, I feel empowered, then they will come to you. I find a lot of the times those guys are the ones who will also tell their friends and bring other people to you. But a lot of the times, if you're being true to usani yourself, a lot of the times the people will come to you. So if you're a storyteller and I understand that lyric, it touched me because I have been through this, then I will be drawn to you. And sometimes I've had people say like, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Yeah, so it is those people who will bring the others to you. Of course, now the decisions you're making as an artist also can't be just from your head. You still have to go back to that fan base to make sure that even the thing that they are resonating with is accurate.
I think maybe I just want to add in a little bit to that. So I think people need to remember that if you're looking for mass success or big pop culture success that rides on an industry, right? It's not, you're not going to be able to do it as a small team.
So you're saying like Adele. Would you say Adele has mass appeal?
Correct. Somebody like Adele, but also let me think of it in the context of someone like Doja Cat, right? I used to love Doja Cat when, I'm those people who say, oh, I used to know her before anybody knew her, right? But like Doja before was not this manufactured person you see, right? She used to have those synth beats, I think they're called synth beats type things, and just have like small videos on YouTube with colors and vibrance, etc. And not really have herself even centered in the art. Whereas Doja Cat now is a manufactured product. You are a product. If you're a mass market product, you're treated like a product. And so the authenticity is true.
So I mean, like,
think of Beyonce before. Now she's earned her stripes to step out and do things outside of pop culture, R&B.
Correct.
You think of somebody like Rihanna, they've earned their stripes, they can move out. But for majority of people, they're like Lil Nas. You have to make it on TikTok, then earn your stripes, then get out and become an artist that's actually an artist, right? You think of Prince, there was Prince, then he moved into the artist formerly known as, right? So you have to remember that there's that stage where there's you just with your small circle of initial fans, and that's the true authentic self. Then you sign the big contract and you begin to feel the pressure of you need to be a mass product, which means that other people will be making decisions for you on what that looks like in order to gain the most value. And then you can evolve into an artist. So that's how I kind of see it. And it's tough, but it's just,
This is sitting very uncomfortably with me because, so if you think about a place like where we are in Kenya, where, to be honest, there's no such thing as industry. You are the industry. You and your fans are the industry. And so there's a question of, we spend a lot of time as artists creating the work. You just make the work because the work is your connection with the audience. And then there's a sense almost, I want to say, of kind of like plateauing. It's like, okay, now this is my circle. I need this circle to become bigger. I need to expand this circle because I need, like you said, to make a living from this situation. And, the art is dope. I want more people to hear the art or to see the art. And then now, like, the platforms have really taught us, like, now just pay for advertising, right? So you can do marketing. Now we need to do marketing things. So then when we are marketing, this is the place where the question mark.
So that's the part I'm saying.
To whom am I talking to now? Because once I go immediately outside of my initial circle,
yes,
right? So Doja Cat say, hey, you guys of day one. Now she needs to go beyond day one. So she was taken beyond day one through the power of industry.
So I think of the Kenyan industry sort of more similar to like a Nashville. So in Nashville, you have these artists who, quote unquote, they can be described as small because they're not national artists in the US, right? They're a Nashville-focused artist. They still make quite a bit of money. They're focused on the Nashville audience, the Nashville circuit of what is available as far as industry is concerned. They're not trying to go to Atlanta or New York, etc. They're happy in that space, and so they maintain themselves in that space. So I think of Kenya in that sense, that there's the Nashville element, yes. However, the moment you want to push out, the moment you want to, you know how people say you want to create what Nigeria has been able to create, right? That's a manufactured product, right? And that's why it's easy for somebody like, gosh, why am I forgetting her name? Thames, yeah? No disrespect, I did not mean that disrespectfully. It's easy for people like Thames to step into a thing and actually just blow up like that because that has now been created. They've moved from Nashville in the days of, you know, Two-Face, Dibia, etc., to actually becoming industries. So we also have to be fair to ourselves. We can't wake up and say we're going to become like that tomorrow. That's impossible, right? But we do have something that we can work with. So then begin to ask yourself, if I want to move from this small space and I want to become mass, then where am I becoming mass? And so therefore, what sound am I creating? What image am I creating? What brand am I creating to actually fit that? And accepting that you will become a mass product. And that's just what it takes. And then
is essentially what you are asking is, do you start with the audience or the other way around? Because if you're now looking for that mass success, then the thing that is driving you is the audience. It's not now.
Okay. So yes.
And sometimes I'm like,
is
audience driven. Gotcha. And this sometimes is where now you're like, okay, this is the difference between the brand and marketing. Because with brand now you're pulling, it's like
you attract them to you.
Attract them to you. But
brand
now,
attracts.
Yes, brand attracts.
Okay.
Creates value.
Yes.
But then now with marketing, now you're trying to put this product out. You're pushing. It's like, here, have. Extract from this value as well.
And also you have to remember, in brand, mass products are not interesting at all. Actually, they're built not to be interesting. Because anybody needs to be able to pick. Yeah, it's true. If you're a mass product, I don't want to name names.
No, I want to. I'm trying to think like fuel, for example.
Soft drink beverages. It's undifferentiated. It's not meant to be interesting. Think of cooking fat. Think of soap. You know, think of detergent. It's meant to speak to everybody. And so therefore it's not meant to be interesting. It's not meant to push anyone's buttons too much, right? It's supposed to just fit, right? And sorry to say, he's brilliant. He's brilliant, yes, but Babyface is a mass product. Your granny would love him. Your kids would love him. You know, he doesn't push any controversial buttons. He's mass. And so if you want to be mass, you also have to recognize that you cannot be as interesting as, say, somebody who has evolved to become an artist, or somebody who is still in the small niche section, who can afford to actually experiment and sit with a very niche audience.
So, but then I don't have to, brand is not, I don't have to be mass to be a brand. No. I can sit in my niche and be a brand, and a strong brand, like you said, like an opera singer or jazz artist or whatever. And I can also sit in mass audience and be a brand. It's not only when I cross over into mass audience where I consider myself brand.
Right. And then, you know, the audience, also I like to think of certain things, like Tom and Jerry really introduced me to a lot of music.
What?
A lot of classical music is in Tom and Jerry, right? So it doesn't always have to be in what you think are artist spaces, you know? I think a lot of the opera singers, actually I as a child grew up hearing them on Tom and Jerry, and then I was like, oh, right, that's that person, right? Blues singers, Actually, if you remember, there was I think she was the housekeeper.
Yes.
And she used to sing a lot of, as she mops, right? So there's a lot of spaces that you can also introduce yourself into that are niche, but that still give you exposure to mass audiences, which I think a lot of artists don't necessarily explore.
That's really interesting, because in the pandemic now, there was a lot of that thought. I think like when Travis Scott did his release on Fortnite, and there was a whole thing about like, actually gaming is really where it's at for like listening to music, and you just need to have the music delivered on the platform, and nobody actually requires to know what you look like or what you sound like. You just need your music in that space, and I think that's something that maybe we haven't really utilized sufficiently here, because I suppose the way the opportunity has been set up, it's like, I need to sing to you, and then you after you've received the music, then now where do we go? Which kind of tends to be the thing, it's like, where do we go with this? What does growth look like? And then we're constantly caught in this, because we're constantly delivering product to audience, whether it's music, art, videos. So now musicians are artists are in a really interesting situation, because now we are also in a thing called the creator economy. So in the same way, now I have a song to give, somebody who's also, doing like good makeup has something to offer to the audience. And suddenly this thing has become very, how can I put it? What was special or unique, there's this thing that artists were able to do to deliver to you this, because we translate for you your life, your emotions. We are right there with you as you're living life. But now the spectrum of living life has really increased, and the channels, like you said. So I think there's a real, I wonder how we should be, I'd like some insight on how an artist should be thinking, in this idea of brand and differentiation in a world of content creators.
That's a good question. But I think, again, it boils down to your brand, because even you are different from the next person. Like your makeup artist, there is still a team effect. So I learned about her because I am your fan. Yeah. So there is still places for synergy without you having to shift. I don't know if that makes any sense.
To try and do all and be all, because this is really the pressure that now we are feeling, right? Because then in this world where we're living, of the platforms where it's like, hey, but engagement, likes, who is talking about you, what are people saying?
I think also you have to look at the content creator again, it's so there's the part where it's just you, the artist, your small team, your small audience, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the industry discussion. And an industry discussion will always be very different. You're dealing with executives, you're dealing with an actual PR machinery, you're dealing with all kinds of machinery, right? So you're not thinking about the content per se. There's somebody thinking about the content for you. So you can actually be an artist if you're in an industry environment, because there's that support infrastructure.
Yeah. Right. So somebody's thinking about the way this thing looks.
Correct. And I think people put too much pressure on themselves when they're on this other end to perform like an industry. And even content creators themselves will tell you that if you look at industry supported content creators such as your Elsas, your Jackie Ainas, in as much as they try and present like, oh, it's me doing all of this by myself, that's not true. They have an entire machinery behind them, right? There's somebody managing their invites to the Met Gala, the content they'll put out that day, how they'll be distinct on that day in terms of content material, etc. Everybody has become a content creator. You look at AOC at COP26 right now. Content, right? Even Nancy Pelosi is beginning to feel that pressure, right? Like, there's no industry right now, I kid you not, even as executives, even for me, there's no industry right now that doesn't require you to have some element of understanding content creation, but also if you understand that for some people they have the whole industry backing, and so therefore I'm not going to give myself that pressure, that lifts that off, right? But also it means that you need to create that identity that is so strong that when the industry is looking for somebody, you fit and you make sense, right? And then you can jump into that space.
So a core of brand is identity.
Yes.
Okay. And this identity I make when I'm on this side, just me and the thing that I do.
Correct.
With the people who are attracted to the thing that I do, right? And then I just keep getting better and better at that thing that I do.
Correct.
Right?
Not signing any even contracts that compromise you so that you can't move into the other space, right? We look at it, a recent example, the Steve-O Simple Boy saga that's ongoing right now. You've signed over so much that even when you're trying to jump, it becomes next to important. And I've seen that a lot with Kenyan artists. In my past life when I was in telco, where you try and work with somebody, you're working with them, and then tomorrow at the office, somebody comes, ding dong, hey, did you know I have their copyrights? That completely compromises my contract with you. We can no longer proceed.
Yeah.
Right? And that happens a lot.
Right.
When you're in this small space and you're desperate and you just sign off and you do things that will not add to your actually, it's still brand identity, right? Like the contracts you sign, the relationships you're in.
Yeah.
And if you grow even from that point on, I think I was listening to a podcast recently and they were talking about John Mayer, who has had longevity. But if you are a true fan, maybe like his last album artwork does not resonate with you because it's like, who is this guy? But it's the machinery that's like, okay, he needs to appeal to the music blogs. And if they're in a more indie vibe or, you know, the thing that is usually popping on all these things that you need for publicity, then we adjust it to this. But if you're a true fan, the music is still the same. It's still John Mayer, even though the packaging, all these other things have been fitted for that mass appeal or for him to, be on the playlists or those kinds of things.
So now, first, I have two questions that are like conflicting. I want to ask both of them. So, Noni, for you, I want to ask, you see, one of the challenges of being when you're starting out, right? Or when you're in this Nashville called Kenya, you have it seems when you're starting, you have such limited, you're in such a tight corner all the time. For one thing, you're probably self-financing. So you are the money, you are the artist, you are the machine of putting out the music. Then there is obviously the psychological space that we are now all playing in because of social media and the numbers and what it's telling you about yourself or your value or your ability to grow, to convert this thing into. So there's real pressure when you're in that space to try and grow, right? And to be honest, because I also went through it, there's almost, there's a lot of questioning of the art as well, because that's all you have at that point, right? And so there's this thing of because I really like what you're saying, right? Like, so don't make rookie mistakes that will compromise you later when you're growing. But you don't know that you're going to grow because you're just trying, and also you're just trying not to drown. Yes. So there's a real question there about how do I build something that is authentic and that is sustainable? How do I build? I think this is because who we are comes out very sort of clearly right from the jump, right? And the things we're interested in. And at the beginning, even without an audience, you're doing it anyway. Then there's this question for now, how do I grow? How do I build? And I don't think at that point we think of ourselves as brands, right? Because the things that we have been taught to think of as brands are the things that sit on this other side where there's all the numbers, all the money, all the machine support. And quite interestingly, we know that there's machine, but because we've never had the experience of machine, we don't even know that it's the machine that is producing the results and not necessarily that person is. I mean, of course, there's always unique talent, but we also know people who don't have necessarily unique talent who still end up. So we're always competing with that thing. So I want to know how we grow, even when we're just on this spot. How do I just grow? And then Nyambura, you've said publicity. I'm like, very good. Now, what is the publicity? Because I know marketing. We know marketing. Marketing is pushing. Yeah. Publicity, at best, most artists interact with it when you have to go to the media. And then, so now there's an interaction of, okay, so if I go to TV, that's publicity, right? That's PR. But now we also have all these platforms So even if I appear on somebody's podcast, that's also publicity. So now what is the difference between marketing and publicity? And at which point does publicity come into the game? Thanks. Whoever can. I think, Noni, you've had some time to think.
Yeah, so I think, you know what, at the end of the day, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Your job is to create. No, I'm saying when you're in that, you're not yet in the industry.
Correct.
Right? You're an artist, your focus should be creating, your focus should be on fine-tuning your art. If you're that nascent or brand new in the industry, I promise you've not fine-tuned your art. Right? So it's really focusing on your art, your craft, building the networks at that point that matter. So that's with producers, it's with people who could potentially mentor you, either in voice, in sound, in presence, stage presence, all of those things. That should actually be your focus at that stage, right? You cannot jump into it and say, I want to grow. That doesn't work out. And I think, you know, any content creator, again, just going back to content creators, any content creator will tell you when they look at their content from a year ago versus what they're doing now, two completely different worlds. Now you've understood lighting, you've understood, I like how Patricia Kihoro talks about pigments in eyeshadow, which I didn't even know are a thing, right? Yeah. You've understood this eyeshadow has better pigment, and so therefore it'll look like this and like that. That's understanding your craft, understanding stage presence, understanding how to tell a story. You still haven't gotten that right. So you'd rather focus on that, and that's what I meant by work on who you are, so that when the industry comes, even you are savvy enough to be able to give specific suggestions and sound like somebody who understands, at the very least, their craft, right? So you're not expecting the industry to handhold you through the entirety of the process. Megan Thee Stallion has been doing her makeup for how long? Even after being signed at those levels, right? Because she understands the haughty aesthetic is not an aesthetic that's been understood by the industry, and people will trust her for that, right? So focus on the craft. By the time the industry is coming, ensure that you have all your ducks in a row. Because the thing about industry is you're dealing with people who are like me. We're corporate. We just have no time. If you don't make sense, you literally have, you know, we think of things in Excel sheets. It's the truth, right? Yeah, you know, I have a list of several different people. They fit several different objectives. If you don't make sense, I'll drop you without any hesitation, right? The industry is not there to build you.
For my growth.
No. It's not there for you. It's there to make money out of an opportunity that exists. So do you make sense for me in that regard, right? Do you come with something that I can quickly package and promote and move with? It's really that simple. And if you don't, and this is for everybody in any creative space, be you a model, be you an influencer, be you a musician, it doesn't matter. You have to be found ready to a very specific extent for it to actually make sense in that regard.
So less effort on trying to grow, more effort on getting good, like this craftsmanship, and then like learning the things, get your ducks in a row.
Exactly. If you have terrible stage presence, I mean, how is that going to work? I mean, we've seen artists who are signed and they're huge, and I don't want to mention names, but you know, you become huge and then you go on Colors and the performance is terrible. Tragic. No matter what the industry has tried. You know, there's the whole category of what they call whisper singers, and they go on these performances and it's so bad that you cannot deny that they're industry plans, right? So you have to just manage your craft, because then that allows more and more opportunities as you keep moving.
One thing I've said to artists on the come up, and it sounds like it sounds a bit discouraging, but I've often said, find another source of income. So that this thing that you love, that is in its nascent stage and that is, you know, evolving and growing, isn't what you're looking at to also like buy your loan and to pay your rent at the end of the month, because this is where the desperation kicks in, right? And then you like end up making some decisions that are not that ideal because, you know, man's got to live.
It affects also then the brand, because then now you stop being authentic to yourself. It's now about paying the bills.
Correct.
Yes, that disorientation also can happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So now publicity is what, please? For this and so much more, join us It's going to be a really good one.